it's me, Canadensis, and today's video is going to be a discussion on mermaid dolls. I love mermaids, I consider myself an expert, and I love mermaid dolls a lot, so I thought this would be a fun video to do. The things that prompted this video to happen were, there's been a lot of discourse around methods of making a mermaid doll recently because of Mermaids, Mermaids, and Mermaid High using quite different methods. And then also, I just did a video on my doll pet peeves and I talked about doll fairy wings and the different ways that companies make fairy dolls, and I have very strong opinions there. I also have very strong opinions here. And just so you know, before we get started, I always make these types of videos just for fun, just to chat about dolls. None of this is meant to sway you a certain way or make you think a certain way or prove that some specific doll is superior. It's just meant to be for fun, talk about dolls, and show you guys what dolls, like what different mermaid dolls exist, I guess. I don't know. So please don't take this the wrong way. If you genuinely prefer the ones that I don't like, that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what makes doll collecting so fun, is that each doll is designed with a specific target in mind, or they're just designed and certain people really, really love them, and that's what makes them so cool. And people like mermaid dolls for different reasons. I like them to just be mermaids. I want a mermaid doll that is a mermaid. I don't need it to be able to transform into a human necessarily, so that's probably a big bias you're gonna see on this list. So yeah, with the intro out of the way, let's get started. So the first one, this doesn't really count as a mermaid doll in my opinion, but a lot of companies make their mermaid doll like this. So I have a Bratz one up there if you can see her. There's LOL OMG Splash Beauty coming out, or she's like out right now. And then this is Ever After High's Michelle Mermaid. This is basically what companies do when they want to have a mermaid character, but they don't want to commit to making a mermaid doll. And it makes sense, right? Because Ever After High, they're all just princesses going to school together, and she can transform into a mermaid in the show, but we didn't get a mermaid doll, which, ugh. So they just kind of gave her a mermaid cut skirt. It is unfortunately a dress, like it's not a separate piece, which kind of sucks, but it's meant to be just a skirt. I just don't like this because I think it's a cop-out. It doesn't really count as being a mermaid, but I thought I'd put it in here because it kind of completes the narrative, and we're kind of going in some kind of order. In my head, it makes sense. And yeah, this is a beautiful doll, don't get me wrong. Like, I love a lot of dolls that use this method, but I definitely prefer when they like go all in and they're actually a mermaid. I think that this is usually a character that's kind of inspired by a mermaid. So the Ever After High characters, although they she literally is meant to be the Little Mermaid, but you know, they're kind of just inspired style dolls, I guess. I don't know. And if it's a line of all human dolls or all humanoid dolls that don't have mermaid tails, and then you throw in a mermaid, I get it. So this kind of makes sense. And it's cute. It is cute. I like it. But anyway. The next style, I kind of got a big honkin' doll here for this one. This is having a fully fabric tail that is removable. So this is the Disney limited edition Ariel doll from, I think it was 2020? No, 2019. So I have Mermaid High dolls, but mine are wearing their regular outfits, and I didn't want to open this one. I'm not sure if I want to open her yet. But the Mermaid High dolls, as you can see, they use this method. So basically, it's just like any other doll underneath. It either has clip jointed knees or fully jointed knees. And like these are just not fully jointed. I don't know why I said that, but like jointed knees. So Ariel has jointed knees, she has normal legs underneath, she's really just a Disney store doll that they've put a fabric tail on, and this is what they use for most Ariel dolls that I've ever seen. I don't know if I've seen one with a molded tail. Oh no, I've seen some like Mattel ones that had molded tails for sure. This method is generally for ones that you want to transform into a person at some point. So Mermaid High is a big example of this. They come with two outfits. They come with a mermaid outfit, and they come with a like on-land outfit. The on-land outfit utilizes their legs so they can wear shoes and stuff. So this is primarily for like transformable dolls. I also think you can get a lot of really interesting tail designs. Like these sequins are super, super pretty. I love these fins. These are really rare in the like professional mermaid hobby as well. I rarely see these fins. I don't know if people don't like them or something, but I prefer to have as many fins as possible, not just these. I want like all sorts of stuff. I want to look like a lionfish or a zebra turkey fish by the time we're done with this. Anyway, I think this is really fun, but I think the limitations of fabric and I don't like the way the joints will look in fabric tails generally. And this is actually a discussion in professional mermaiding too, right? Because there's two camps, fabric tails and silicone or latex tails. I always prefer the silicone or latex tails because you physically feel like a mermaid, right? You've got like realistic feeling scales on your like skin and people can feel them and it feels like a real fish. It's really cool. And I always prefer that, but fabric tails can look absolutely beautiful. They're cheaper. So it's just up to personal preference. Also, fabric tails are way easier to swim in. I have several fabric tails and I definitely prefer swimming in them and they're way easier to put on. So I think in the doll world, this is definitely a lot easier for changing your doll into a human, which Ariel turns into a person. The Mermaid High girls turn into people, and yeah, I think it's cute and fun. Sometimes it's done as just kind of a lazy thing, like you'll just see this like really cheap fabric sock shoved on the legs and it just feels kind of like, come on. But when done well, such as like this and the other limited edition Ariel doll, I'll put a picture here. Oh my god. So like this Ariel doll, that tail is so cool. So there definitely are instances that I think this style of tail really works and is really, really beautiful. So me saying it's not my favorite, I just mean in general it's not my favorite, but there are lots of instances where I think that like this, they're done incredibly well, and I think this doll is beautiful too. And I definitely really, really love the Mermaid High tails. I think the designs on them are super fun. I wish that they had extra fins and stuff, because I think that's a big thing that fabric allows you to do, is very easily and cheaply add these extra fins, but it's totally fine. It just depends on what the designers were going for. Alrighty, so the next method of mermaid doll, so this was the one that was, or this one is overall the most prevalent. I feel like it's between these two. So this is a basic articulation, like plastic tail, and then just a fabric tail, and depending on the amount of just the point of the fabric tail is that you get the articulation of underneath without extra effort, right? And you just have to stick a tail on, so it's easy for kids to transform them, versus these are meant to be permanent mermaids. I always prefer a doll to be a permanent mermaid. That's kind of, it's a mermaid doll, go big or go home, right? Like I want to see her always be a mermaid, and I think you can get a lot more interesting things when you have a permanent mermaid, and we'll get into that. But I like both. Like I just prefer a permanent mermaid. A lot of people prefer a transformable mermaid, and from the discourse I've been seeing around mermaids, it seems like most people prefer a transformable mermaid, which does make sense. I just want to see a good mermaid. That's my thing. Anyway, so this is Nori from Mermaidia, which is a Barbie movie, a spinoff, not a spinoff, but like a continuation of Fairytopia. And the way that these ones work is they just have a plastic tail that's completely molded, and then they have a hinge right here so they can sit. I love that they can actually sit, but you see, they can't really sit on a flat... I did not know this was articulated, and I don't think it's supposed to be. Yeah, that's not articulation. I think that's just... I think it comes off, sorry. I have never noticed that, a seam? I've never noticed that seam before. Anyway, that was a distraction, sorry. Plastic tails are very nice for having a detailed tail. It's very good for having a permanent mermaid, right? Because it's probably a lot easier just to stick a tail on and call it a day. You don't have to do a bunch of sewing. You don't have to do an extra entire mold that you can put on top of the tail. It's just easy. It's quick. You can get a lot of detail going on here. Like you can see all of the different scales and the swirls and the paint detail. These are really fun. And I think these are the absolute best option for bathtub toys, which a lot of mermaids are bathtub toys. This was my bathtub toy from when I was a kid. This exact one, actually. I still have them to this day. And yeah, I think it's a good option. This is my least favorite style of this. I have 3 molded plastic tails in this video because there's varying degrees of articulation. This is just one hunk of plastic. It has no articulation. Jury's out on this. I think this is just for assembly in the factory though. Yeah, she can sit, which I really appreciate that she can sit, as we are getting into the next one, which is Mermaid Mermaid. So this is a brand new line by MGA. This doll was sent to me for the purposes of review by MGA, but my review is done. I didn't have to talk about them in the first place, but I already did my review. So this is just discussing her because she is the only mermaid doll I have with this specific method of articulation, and also they're pretty new, so I thought it would be good to put them in here. Also, if you didn't know, these are in stock on Walmart.com right now. It's not an affiliate link. I don't get anything out of it, but if you guys are looking for them, there will be a link in the description. Hopefully she's still in stock by the time I upload this. If not, I'm really sorry. Anyways, she is like the most recent attempt at a mermaid doll, and she's meant to be a permanent mermaid, which is a huge bonus for me. I really like this. I've been seeing the main, because these two are on the shelves right now. These are the two like main mermaid lines, because I feel like there's very rarely a doll line that is exclusively mermaids. So we have two, kind of. It is a mermaid doll line, but they can transform, but it's still a mermaid doll line. So we have transformable and not transformable. It's really up to you. Also fabric tail versus plastic tail. So these are actually incredibly different styles of dolls. These are interesting to me because I'm not going to go too far into it, but they're meant to be bath toys, but their hair really cannot withstand baths very well. And they also have inset eyes and a lot of articulation, which I definitely prefer, but it might not be the best for being a bath toy. I don't think they're meant to be bath toys, but they are supposed to have a water play element to them. But you see what I mean? Like, it's not the best to put in the water, but that's okay. It's because it's nylon hair. I think saran would have been a better choice for these, but the color payout of nylon is probably what they were going for. Anyways, all that aside, Mermaids dolls have a plastic tail. It's a molded plastic tail. It's hard plastic, and it has two spots where the articulation that is concerning the tail has two. It has one at the hip and then one here. So the difference between these two is just here. I really hope they consider in the future adding a knee joint, because I think that would really set Mermaids apart from other mermaids, because I feel like a knee joint is actually really rare in a molded tail type of doll. I only have one example for this video, for example. My biggest issue with mermaids specifically is that they actually can't sit. I can see that they can get pretty close, but I feel like they just had to carve that out a little more, and they definitely would have been able to sit. But you do get a huge range of motion here, and I think these are kind of designed to be more underwater poses, and you can get some beautiful underwater poses with these. Like, I love the chest joint here. Like, look how nice that is. It makes a really beautiful swimming pose. And this piece is loose enough. It's tight enough where it doesn't really like fly around, but it's loose enough that when you're in the water, it actually flows in the water, which I think is really, really beautiful. And I had a lot of fun playing with her in my bathtub when I was doing a shoot for my review of these dolls. And I really, really like that they're exclusively mermaids. The biggest problem to me, I don't really mind the knee joint. It's not that big of a deal to me, but the biggest issue is that they don't have the ability to actually sit down, because for me, and this is something I mention quite often when I show my doll collection, specifically pertaining to this doll, I don't want to display my mermaid dolls standing up. Some I have to, but in general, I want them sitting because I don't have a lot of like exclusive mermaid doll lines. So like Ariel needs to be sitting down, right? Because she's next to the other princesses. They're not underwater and she's not like floating. So generally I would like to either display them with cool swimming poses, which you can do standing up, or sitting down, and I think sitting down is probably the better choice for kids. So I do wish she could sit, but that aside, I think this style of tail is optimal for water play. I really, really love the amount of detail that these tails have. I'll show you my other Mermaids doll, Riviera. You can see how much detail the tails can have, which I think is super fun, and I love the detail on the fin as well. I think they're really, really interestingly designed tails, and that's the same thing as Nori, right? Like having this is because they have a color change feature, by the way. My hands are warm, I guess. Nori has really, really cool detailing, the scales, the pearls, the swirls, all the painted details. Like, I think these are the best in terms of how much design you can get on the actual tail. If you want a really heavily designed and interesting tail, you kind of have to go with the molded on tail. There is a hybrid option that hasn't been explored a lot that we're going to get into a little bit later that is my favorite, so we'll get there. But yeah, I think these are very nice, and this method I really like a lot. I think just this little thing adds so much play both in water and on land, because this also works as a stand for the doll. I know you can't tell, but she's standing up. That's really cool, and it's a huge bonus because these dolls can't unless you have a stand for them, and most kids don't have doll stands, so unless they're going to come with a doll stand, having the tail actually be able to stand them up is really creative and fun, so I really, really like that. Mermaids are my favorite mermaid dolls on the market right now. They're not all the way on the market, but between the Barbie ones, Mermaid High, and these, this is my favorite because they're exclusive mermaids, and that's fun to me. Anyway, next we have Monster High's mermaids. I'm so grateful that Monster High did mermaid dolls, and they did such a good job. They didn't just give us a mermaid. They gave us these really wild and out there mermaids, and even their mermaid ones, like Toralai's just kind of a mermaid one. She has these cool wing fin things. Her fin is really cool. They can use their tails. They can articulate their tails and stand on their tails. Frankie's an eel. Calamari is the Kraken. We got a girl with like a seaweed tail. She's meant to be like Poseidon's daughter. I don't really know what's up with her design, but anyway. We also have a ghost mermaid. She's not from Great Scary Reef, but she was the first mainline Monster High Mermaid. I know there's a Create a Monster one. I do have that one, but I've never had her built, really. I'm not a big fan of that one. Anyway, Monster High really did well with the mermaids, and these, in my opinion, are the best of the molded tail. I don't have any ball jointed dolls. There are ball jointed mermaids. Personally, having ball joints everywhere on the tail, to me, is kind of ugly, but I love the amount of motion they can get, and I think when people paint them really well, it looks amazing. I would die to have one of those mermaid ball jointed dolls. And they get fully articulated tails, so you can get these crazy poses out of them. It would be really cool, but I think the joints are quite unsightly. These dolls have a ton of motion in their joints, and they can sit. This is what maddens me about mermaids, and I hope they fix it. So this is how, oh, this is Perry and Pearl Serpentine. They're a Hydra, by the way. You can sit because they carved it out enough, and it doesn't really sacrifice much of anything. I know this, her waist is kind of on a ball joint, not her waist, her hip is on a ball joint, which I think is really cool, but you lose the ability to sit, which is a very important thing in a doll. So I really appreciate that this doll can sit, but she doesn't have all that really cool motion in the chest or the hips, so I don't know, it just depends on your preference. This is better for swimming poses, but this is better for overall play, I think. Anyway, so she has here a knee joint. It's not the best knee joint, and it's kind of scary to use. It feels like you're gonna break it, but it is a knee joint. And then there's also joints down here. And I feel like before Monster High, I don't remember any mermaid dolls that had a stand that was their tail. And if there is one, I'm assuming it was made by Mattel. This is really cool. So she can also stand on her tail, and all of them can in various ways. A lot of them will have their fin split in two. So it'll split like this, and then they can stand on the fin instead of having like the fin do that to stand up. Either way, really cool. This tail, I love this because for hybrid play, in terms of like you're playing with them on land or you're playing with them in the water, this actually works really well. You can have really cool swimming poses going on. You know, you can swim with the doll really well. It's a bit clunky, but that's because it's hard plastic. It's kind of like I could beat you with this. Anyway, sorry. Oh, big positive here. So these ones I was talking about how cool the molds themselves are, or the painted detail in conjunction with the mold, but this one, extra fins, big one to me. It's very disappointing to me that for the most part you don't really get a lot of extra fins on fabric-tailed dolls, even though you really should. But look at this, extra fins, this really cool thing on the end, like that's great. That's great. She also has tail jewelry, and Posy Reef also has tail jewelry. It's so cool. Monster High really did a good job on these. I really like that they're articulated at the knee, and this isn't an unsightly joint at all. In fact, they covered it up quite nicely. So you get that extra articulation for fun photography, fun posing, fun display, fun play. Like I think these are fantastic. The glue seepage is not fantastic though. Anyway, next we're getting into the kind of, these are more like a professional real life mermaid, like a professional mermaid tail. Mostly you're gonna be seeing silicone or latex, and these are the closest you get to that. There's two that I have. There's probably more out there. If there are, I don't have them, and off the top of my head, I can't think of them. Oh, well, I have a Winx one that is just like this. So this is Ricky from H2O, Just Add Water. So this is a show where they are not primarily mermaids. They are people who transform into mermaids. Big spoiler. So these do transform. You can take the tails off. I actually really love the way that this is done. I think this is one of the only dolls where the transformation has no detriment to the actual function of the mermaid tail itself. All the other ones that I've seen and that I have, the transformation aspect is, it does something negative. It'll have an ugly joint, or the feet will be weird or something, but the way that this was molded, and these are made by Playmates, is just really impressive. And they also slide on and off really easily, but when they're on, and they're perfect for underwater play too. I think this could probably get mildewy if you're not careful, but I feel like if you were to dry it off well, it would be fine. These are amazing, and they share the same amount, well, they can't sit super well when they're in the tail. That is kind of a negative, but that's mostly because of this. Like the dolls themselves can actually sit. But I love that it's not super loose or gappy. It does have this to make it easier to put on and off, but overall these tails are super cool, and the way they're molded. So she has flat feet, which would be a problem, but they molded the tail in such a way that you don't get like a weird ugly ankle going on, which is awesome because even when I'm wearing my professional mermaid tails, you can see my ankles and I don't like it. You can see my heels and my ankles and I think it's weird and ugly. But these dolls solve that problem. And you could totally do this with a human tail too. I feel like in the show they actually did do this. This is super cool. I do wish this was more detailed. It's like, I don't know how to describe the material to you. It's like squishy, it's pliable. Oh, she also can move her knees because the doll has articulated knees, so you get more posing ability. These are super cool. Unfortunately, because they can't sit super well, I kind of have to display them standing up. But since it's a line of all mermaids, well, I only have the mermaids. There are like human fashion versions. I only have the mermaids though. God, I'd love to have the rest of these dolls. They are hard to find in the US, by the way. A lot of people, when I show these on camera, they're like, these exist? What? Yeah. But yeah, these are super cool. These are one of my favorite ways just because this is exactly how my professional tails are. You know, it's this big sock of like silicone that you just slide on, and the companies like Mertailor that make the professional silicone tails in the past have actually made doll-sized mermaid tails out of dragon skin silicone, and they're just like this, so I think that's kind of a bonus to mention too. I wish I'd bought one of those when they were a thing. All right, last we have the ultimate, the grand master of mermaid dolls. This is the best of the best. I've never seen anything be better than this, and I've also never seen this done again, and I don't know why, because this was Mattel's, like, one of Mattel's first attempts at like an all mermaid line. So this is Mermaid Fantasy Christie from Mattel. So this is a Barbie doll, and there's 3 dolls in this line. This is the best one. These tails are excellent. I had is she Barbie, the one with the pink hair, as a kid. I still have her, but she's a mess. This tail is perfect. Like, this is the way to do it. First of all, this feels much more like the tail that I actually wear. This is a little bit harder. It's like a rubber material, whereas this is actually, like, I'm pretty sure this is actually latex, which is great. Like, that's awesome. And it's so, they did such a good job. Okay, so how these work, and they have, does this only move the arm? They have a lever, but I think it only moves the arms around. They can sit, fully sit. They have a knee joint that's very, oh my God, it's so pretty, sorry. Her crown fell off, sorry. Okay, so how this works is she doesn't have legs, you can't take the tail off. I tried to take the tail off my Barbie one as a kid, and now it's all peely and gross on the top, unfortunately. She can also, like, look at this! Look at this pose! Look at this pose! Look at this pose! So there's some kind of armature under here. It's basically like a pole with a joint, a pole, and then it screws the actual fin on. And that allows it to be a, like, this is like a real fish, the way it moves. It's incredible. It's incredible. And because there's no legs underneath, you don't get any weird thing going on. I cannot fathom why Mattel did not do this again, because they had the technology to do it. I'm sure they still have the mold. Please, Mattel, if you're watching this, I know you're, well, I always say, like, no way someone in the industry would watch my videos, but then they do. Anyway. Somebody in the doll industry, do this again, please. It would destroy Mermaid High and Mermaids Mermaids, I promise it would. Anyway, this is the best of the best by far. This is so stinking cool. And then I think this, yeah, this articulates too. Like, if the doll's top halves were more articulated, these would be the greatest dolls ever made, in my opinion, and I'm not exaggerating. They are still some of my favorite dolls of all time because you can't beat this. There's nothing that could ever beat this. It's so perfect. That was kind of ugly. But, like, can you believe that is real? Like, this is a doll? Okay, there is a big glaring negative thing, and I think it's why they don't make these anymore, and it's kind of unfortunate. So I got this doll, her tail was in perfect condition, and then I sat her down on display for a while, and I hate to admit it, but it was my fault. It has a little peel here. So mine as a kid, this whole piece is like peeling off. That's it though. And I played with that doll a lot, and she was my bath toy and I loved her so much. She's in storage right now, otherwise I would have brought her out here. So the big issue with this is that the material is slightly too thin, I feel like, because you can kind of see how thin the material is. I can kind of pull it off the doll a little bit here. It's a little bit thin, and I think in the wrong temperature conditions, or if you leave her sitting or with her knees bent for too long, it's gonna cause a rip, which is a really big shame. But honestly, that's not even that bad. Like, This is just excellent. The fun factor is unmatched. She's a mermaid permanently, which is great. The bath play is unmatched for this. I'm having a blast on land with this doll. I feel like similar to my argument with the mermaid or the Winx dolls. So when you're playing with a fairy or a mermaid, right, it's either flying or swimming play. And these have like wings that flap when you fly them around. That's super fun, right? And you don't really have to do a lot. This is just gravity that does this. And then the other alternative, which is my actual personal favorite, is having a little button that makes it where they can flutter. So you're getting like a realistic experience, but you know, like you're getting a flying experience with your doll, and it's really fun. It makes it where you're having an action with the doll, and it matches the identity of the doll, I guess. And it's a really fun gimmick, so it separates them from other mermaid or other fairy dolls. There are Disney Store dolls that do this too, by the way. The Disney Store Disney Fairies dolls of Tinkerbell, Periwinkle, Fawn, and Zarina, and there's some international exclusives, which I would die to have do that. Sorry, this isn't the fairy video. They're hijacking. If you guys want to see an exclusive fairy video, though, let me know. I would be happy to make it. I kind of basically made that video already in my doll pet peeves video, but I'd be happy to do it again. Anyway, this is just the ideal because it really ticks off all the boxes. The tail is fully articulated. The tail is beautifully designed. Like, I can't get over the paint on this. I know I didn't point it out, but it has this like gradient paint. So it's dark on the back, light on the sides, and then dark on the front. It has this beautiful glitter on it. It has molded on scales. The actual fin is just beautiful. And it's like, it's very satisfying to touch. When I was a kid, the way my toys felt was very important, like the feeling of the hair. They have Kanekalon hair, which is my favorite. And the way this feels is just unlike any other. And in the water, it really feels like a fish, which is really important to me anyway. And this is the doll that is the most like a professional mermaid tail. So the closest to a real mermaid that will get. So I just love this. I don't think there will be a doll that beats this until somebody uses this method again. Because it's not just that the material is cool, because this is a similar material. It's the conjunction of the material with the super loose joints that work really well for making the doll actually swim, and then also just the appearance. Like everything just came together perfectly with these dolls. And these are from, I think, 1997. So they just hit it out of the park. Mermaid dolls weren't really a big thing. They weren't super common. You had like Seawees, and there were other attempts, you know, but they were always a fabric tail. And Seawees were different, but they were molded on tails. Like, it was like this, but they were stuck like this. Like, it was just on them. It did feel kind of like rubber, though, I think. I have a few. I don't know. I just think this is perfect. And it was so early on, too. Imagine how much better the Fairytopia and Mermaidia Mermaids would have been if they were like this. And I will acknowledge, I didn't want to get her out for this video because she's, I don't even know where she is right now. I have a Winx Club mermaid doll, and she's this way. This is how she is. The Magic Ocean ones, they are made like this. There are Giochi Preziosi ones that I think are fabric tails, so just worth pointing out. Anyway, that's it. I need to pick up this crown. Someone put a crown on her head. She is your highness now. Okay. That's it for this video. I would love to hear your input on the mermaid dolls, although I'm not swaying that this is the ultimate mermaid doll. And I know that if you want like a doll that can transform into a person, this definitely isn't ideal because she's forever a mermaid. You can't remove her tail. But I just love this. But you can get pretty good hybrid between these two things. You don't get the fun articulation, but you can still get the same appearance. These are kind of like, they're not painted or super highly detailed or anything, but they could be. And you can kind of get the appearance of this one and the feeling of this one, but still get a transformable doll with the way that the H2O dolls did it, which I think is really nice. But I don't know, I definitely prefer when my dolls are just mermaids for life, and I'm really excited about all these different mermaid doll lines that are happening right now, and I hope we see more. I know there's a Barbie mermaid movie coming up, but I have a feeling it'll be like every other Barbie mermaid, which isn't a bad thing, but probably more like this. Yeah. And there are Barbie mermaids on the market right now. I don't know about Dreamtopia, but there are color reveal ones. I'm interested in those. I don't really check my Barbie section too closely, but I don't feel like I've seen them yet. I don't know. Maybe someday. We'll see. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I would love to hear what you guys have to say about mermaids in the comments down below. I love, 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 love mermaids, and I know they're not for everybody. Like, I know a lot of people prefer their dolls to just like be fashion dolls, and I totally get it, but I just love mermaids. I love the way they're colorful and exciting, and they have tails, and they live in the ocean, and you get all these really, or rivers. I honestly prefer the idea of a river mermaid. Like, I think that's like prettier. not necessarily like designed prettier, but like a prettier thought. I don't know how to describe that. But I love mermaids. I'd also love to know, especially if it's one that I didn't show in this video, what is your favorite mermaid doll that you have in your collection or that you've seen before? And I would love to know why. Anyway, that's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching for all this time. Bye!